We have our executive, we have our legislature, and we have our judiciary. So this is mainly what we have been practicing in Ghana. It's a constitutional democracy that allows us freedom of speech, freedom of expression. We have civic engagement and civil liberties all as part of our democracy. But is this what would build a good democracy for us as a nation? What are some of the things that we need to do? Not we want to do, but what are some of the things that we need to do if Ghana wants to build that strong democracy that we should be admired for? As a center-right political party, I think one of the most important things that we need to speak to is how do we enforce property rights? And I think enforcing property rights hinges on building stronger institutions with well-defined rules and proper advocacy systems or advocacy support systems. Now, generally, when you talk about having strong property rights in a democracy, there are things that you need to first make sure of. The first is you need to have legal protection and recognition. So it's one thing about having the laws, but it's also another thing about enforcing them and making sure that people are protected. So if people have properties, if people have businesses, if people have things that they have invested in, what kind of laws and what kind of institutions do you have that protects them, that prohibits governments from arbitrary seizure or taking people's things out of their hand without any explanation? Then it means that we need independent courts that would enforce people's ownership of such things, and that is what would encourage more people to invest. Again, we need to have laws that enforce transferability. So you have something. How are you able to transfer ownership to another person? I think that's one of the things that still worries us as a democracy. Transfer of property in Ghana is marred by bureaucracies and laws which we haven't properly explained. So if you want to sell your piece of property or your land to another person, sometimes the amount of paperwork that you have to use in transferring it alone prohibits you from it. We know that we have the financial laws, and now we have FICA, that's financial intelligence system, that also prohibits certain transfers. That would all have to respect as a national country. But then we are talking about our own local land laws and how it prevents transferability and how it therefore creates something we call an exclusion criteria, where you have certain people who can own land, whereas there are other groups of people who cannot own land. This does not talk, or this does not speak to the building of a proper democracy. Again, we need to talk about how we promote free markets and reduce state dependence. And here, I think day in and day out, we've talked a lot about how we need to make some of our state-owned enterprises more efficient. We've gone through years and years of divestiture, but we still have some state-owned enterprises that are more of a drain on government coffers than an investment. As a property-owning democracy, as a liberal democratic party, conservative, who wants to build an enabling environment for the private sector to grow, ours is not always to engage or to offer our investment for state-led enterprises. They have to be state-led enterprises that would grow the private sector, that will provide the enabling environment, but not state-led enterprises that rather become a drain on government coffers. So it's important that we get this right, that we put in reforms that help our state-owned enterprises to rather become engines of growth for the private sector, but rather do not become a drain on government coffers. Again, we need to simplify our tax systems. And it is one thing talking about this, and it's another thing actually implementing it. So if you have to establish a business and you have to pay taxes across 10 different institutions, whereas you could have gone through less bureaucracy and less stumbling blocks by paying the tax at one place, you can pay all of it in one place. It encourages more businesses to thrive. The worst part about this, and I mentioned this, is advocacy. Taxes which you don't even know about and are hidden within other taxes. So by the time you finish paying for one, you realize that you've paid for 7 more. These are things that we also have to work on if we want to build a better democracy. Again, I want to talk about decentralizing power. We have a lot of local governance systems, but the physical decentralization has not come up properly with the kind of decentralization reforms that we have built. So at the very high level, we talk about decentralization in Ghana. But when it comes to allowing the decentralized units to manage their own budgets, to manage their own finances, to plan accordingly and say that we are supporting our development plans with this amount of budget, we haven't been able to do it. And so physical decentralization has failed. We also need to understand that we have to strengthen our own national identity and our civic values. If you want to build a democracy, but people don't understand their democratic values and their civic responsibilities, then you are heading in a wrong direction. And we see this especially. We've gone from an election voter turnout of over 70% to below 70% in just 8 years. We may just think that 8 years is such a long time. But in electoral history and electoral cycle, it's not such a long time for us to have seen such a drastic drop. It means that civic responsibilities and civic duties is going down. People do not see it anymore as a civic responsibility or a civic right to go to the poll and go and vote. And that means that we are reducing our democratic values. So if we want to build a stronger democracy, it's one of the things that we need to enforce. And that means that we have to be more patriotic in our civic education. So we need to strengthen institutions like NCC, National Commission for Civic Education, and find out what it means for them to educate people on their civic responsibilities if you want to build a stronger democracy. In the same way, we need to then also support family structures. And here, what is our unit of development as a nation? Most of the time, we forget the fact that if the household, that is the minute unit of development, does not have enough or does not see its ability to move from day to day or does not have the income that gives them the ability to survive, the household will not vote. It means the head of household will not vote, and if the head of household is not voting, then all other voting age members in the household will also not vote. And so we need to support our own family structures. We should promote policies that strengthen our family units. We've always talked about how we give tax incentives to families, but we haven't been able to incorporate it in our tax laws. So you find out that families that have a higher burden or have a higher dependency ratio still pay the same taxes as families with lower dependency ratio. But in the developed countries, tax incentives are given to people who look after more dependents. But we haven't been able to build this into our family structures, meaning there's still something missing. So the unit of development for us is not our household. We haven't been able to drop development to the household level to ensure that we are bridging the gap between the rich and the poor. Again, our elections are not as secure as we want it to be. So the very system or the very process through which people actually exercise their democratic responsibility is not safe. We still hear day in and day out, and Ablekuma North is just an example, a recent example. We are threatening our democracy by such. We are not allowing people to feel free to walk to the poll to go and cast their vote. Anyone watching some of the violent incidents during the Ablekuma North will be discouraged from voting. Then it means we are actually risking our democracy even dropping more. Because then it's not just about people not understanding it, but it's also about the fact that we are disenfranchising people by not making them feel safe enough when they go and vote. So we can have biometric systems that safeguard your vote and etc. But if we don't make people feel safe for just the walk from their homes to the polling station, then we have actually arrived at nothing. And that also then leads to our national security issues. Border security, how do we partner with traditional leaders in making sure that our borders are protected and they are safe? We also then need to talk about even controlled immigration and economic patriotism. Who are the foreign workers that we are allowing into our system? Do we need that knowledge base in our system? And are they taking jobs away from other people who need jobs in our system? So I think this, in brief, is some of the things that I want to talk about that we need to work on in building a stronger democracy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Antoinette Tibudako. Is a coordinator for Patriotic Institute. We're talking about bridging the gap between the rich and the poor. Okay, let's see how we deal with corruption since we talk about the rich and then the poor. So let's invite Susan Ohine, who's going to talk about how does corruption affect development in Ghana. Round of applause for her before she speaks, please.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm going to stand on all the protocols, and especially Mr. Faris' explanation of development. But I'm going to focus on just one little bit of it, which is the GDP. So what do we mean by development in freedom? Just focusing on GDP. I know our motto is development in freedom, so everybody must think, why am I asking that question? For our purposes, I'm defining development as a consistent growth in gross domestic product to enable Ghana achieve a developed country status. So I'm keeping it very simple. We seem to have every ingredient for development. We have natural resources, we have human resources, and every time you tell people, whether inside, especially outside Ghana, that you are from Ghana, there's some expectation that you must meet a certain standard. But why are we not developing? What is the problem? I'm going to focus on a very depressing part of this journey, the road from Accra to Kumasi, which joins the two economic hubs of Ghana and also serves as a transit route for our neighbors in Burkina Faso and Ghana. Anybody who travels on that road, when you come back, you have to ask yourself, what kind of a country do we have? Are we developed or not developed? And I think once you've made that trip, you come to your conclusion, we are not a developed country. So we don't need the World Bank or anybody else to come and explain whether we are developed or not. If you forget, let's assume that all the other roads, yeah, at some point we develop them. But if you travel from Accra to Kumasi and you cannot have a safe, peaceful journey, then we cannot call ourselves a developed country. So that is my definition of underdevelopment. Then the other issue I'm supposed to explain and see how it impacts us is corruption. And I'm going to use a very simple Oxford Dictionary explanation. Dishonest or fraudulent conduct by those in power, typically involving bribery. Simple, straightforward. So I'm going to demonstrate this by giving you what I call my fantasy project, which will be the road from Dwapong via Abutia to Sokode in the Volta region. You may ask why that particular road. Well, I come from Abutia, so that's the one which is important for me. So let's start. Our fantasy Minister of Finance proposes 50 million for the construction of the road. 5% goes to facilitators, secretaries, special assistants, directors, and very important but unnamed persons. The next step, 5% goes to Parliament, which approves the road. I'm going to dare everybody here, and I hope I'm not arrested. But the Parliamentary Select Committee, 8 representatives of people, they get the 5%. Then the contractor has to pay somebody at the ministry who defines how the tender is going to be awarded. So the professionals and public servants. So that's number 3, they get 1%. Then the contract is awarded, and there's a whole group of professionals and some very important people, party activists, and surveyors, engineers, they get 5%. We then move on to the consultant who is going to provide the project. They get a paltry 1%. Then we finally get to mobilization of funds to be disbursed. What do I mean by that? Most of the contracts we have are by contractors who need funds to even start the project. To do that, we have to pay another 1% to facilitators, secretaries, special assistants, and very important people who shall remain nameless. Then finally, our contractor gets to start the road. He has to have some 5% to give to chiefs, opinion leaders, NGOs, because when you start the road, the NGOs will come and say, you are not looking after the people who should have moved from there years ago, have been paid probably twice already, but because the project was delayed, you have to pay them. So the NGOs to come to you, the chiefs come to you, and opinion leaders who are going to convince everybody that, yes, this contractor must do the work, have to be paid. So this fantasy contractor has now completed his road. He needs somebody to certify that he has completed so that he can be paid. There's another 2% there. Then finally, this road is built, and that is when you have real trouble. Who pays the final, makes the final payment? Of course, it's the Ministry of Finance. So the facilitators, the secretaries, special assistants, directors, and important people who shall remain nameless. All of them have to be paid. So, being a banker, I like numbers. So I've tallied all this up and say you need at least 15 million out of the 50 million. So you start from there. So why am I saying these are bribes? Because everybody in this chain has power. All you need is one secretary to disappear your file, and you are doomed. I'm not talking of the directors. I'm just saying you need one secretary to disappear your file, and the project is doomed. So what happens if you want to continue? You then go to the consultant. The consultant will say, okay, pay me some 2%. I'll do a variation. So you go through the whole process again. We add another 20 million. So the project is now, 70 million? Okay, so we're now at 70 million. We start the project. We are on our way. You think that's going to complete? No. The project then comes to a standstill. The workers are no longer at the site, and then travelers are frustrated. The road is uncompleted. Everybody is unhappy. If we are all in agreement that what I've just described is bribery, then why don't we do anything about it? And now I'm going to argue that every single head of state we've had, from Kwame Nkrumah's Dawn broadcast, Dr. K. Buzia's education, saying posters, that's my first memories, do not accept bribes or gifts. They are bribes. I think there are some old people here who would remember those posters. But yes, we had that. All the way to our current president, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, we're all east or west or whatever fighting corruption. But why? So all this came to a head in 1979. When we said, this time around, we are very serious, we executed 3 heads of state and other military leaders. I, as a banker, was a bit puzzled. At that time, I wasn't a banker, but when I think back, what did Rear Admiral John Amedume do when he went to take a bank loan? Apparently, he used his position to get the loan. Even though he was paying the loan back, he was executed. Then we have General Utuka, who was said to have acquired 11 houses corruptly and was executed. Well, personally, I happened to be in school with 2 of his children at the time. And a few years ago, we went to his wife's 80th birthday celebration. And she said, I was told my husband had 11 houses. I then went and said, please, give me one of those houses and let me live in. She never got a house to live in. She never got a house to live in. So if a husband truly fraudulently acquired 11 houses, why wouldn't he let his wife and children have at least one? Then there's poor old Roger Felly, Kenneth Felly. As we sit here now, I'm waiting for somebody to tell me exactly what he did for which he was executed. We still don't know what he did. So fast forward, 45 years ago, 45 years later, December 2024, we've had elections. NPP loses the election. Then we see a video by gallant NDC officials in the Volta region under the auspices of Oral, providing evidence, and I say evidence with quotes, of corrupt actions by the immediate past MCE, who was also the NPP parliamentary candidate, Divine Bosan. He had apparently in 3 years acquired 14 private houses on government land. And clearly, that must be we must all be outraged. So a few days later, what happens? A couple of journalists said, they were at this same location probably a year earlier, and this same MCE, chiefs and everybody, had cut a sword to construct 14 houses, not for himself, but for health workers in the municipality. For the same location. So, what happens? The MCE comes out and said, I have not built any houses. This 14 houses is for the municipality. But nobody will listen to him. And the same people who had the videos going back and forth never said anything. Well, I told him he should be very happy that we are under the Fourth Republic. He could have been easily executed. So these issues are 45 years apart. General Utuka and Divine Bosan, 45 years apart. But I'm saying that our fight against corruption is a joke. It's a total joke. We just stand up and accuse all politicians of being corrupt. So the people who are truly corrupt, who have really impacted us, we don't do anything about it. We don't do anything about it. If we accuse everybody of being corrupt, like I've said, then what's the point? To continue, I'm going to bring a few more numbers again. There was one time in this country, in 2000, between 2000 and 2003, when former President John Ajiki Kufuor said, enough is enough. As a center-right party, we must live in reality. No fake numbers. And he said, Ghana is a highly indebted poor country. I'm sure if you all recall, the Ghana Bar Association and various organizations were said, this is an outrage. How can the Black Star of Africa be bankrupt? Or everybody had something to say about it. But he put his head down, went on, and did what needed to be done. The World Bank at the time said that they were going to give us 3.7 billion. But I'm not focusing on that huge number. Just some small amounts, which according to the Bank of Ghana, we were credited with at the Bank of Ghana to enable us pay our debts and move forward. So in 2002, they gave us $109 million US. And that was 1.77% of our GDP. In 2003, they gave us 109 million, again 1.43%. The biggest amount we got under HIPIC was 167 million, and that was 1.89% of our GDP. That is all we got. And yet, by the end of that decade, we were finally a lower middle income country. Why is that important? It's important because these relatively small amounts, managed efficiently, and with the figures being real figures of what was going on in the economy, transformed this country. You would ask me, what has that got to do with corruption? So let's fast forward to 2017. As a banker, I was really shocked with the allegations of what had happened to our banks. And as anybody who is in banking would tell you, banks don't go bankrupt because they don't have assets. They go bankrupt because they don't have liquidity. Liquidity is all a bank needs. So what were the allegations? The allegations were that one particular bank, for example, Unibank, which had Honorable Kwabena Dufo as its leader, and 7 others, had received irregular loans and withdrawals to the tune of $5.3 billion Ghana cedis. At the time, the exchange rate was 5.3, so that's about 1 billion. There was very little dispute about this number. And if you take our GDP at the time, at the end of 2016, it was 56.16 billion. So these 8 people were accused of taking 1.76% of our economy. Okay? 1.76% of our economy. So I had previously repeated the HIPIC amounts we received. That's according to the Bank of Ghana. I am trying very hard to stick to those numbers which we have on record, not what I've made up. So why do we have a problem? The government of Ghana borrows money for these various road contracts. So if the first 50 million was borrowed, we never completed the road, we find a way of siphoning another 20 million, we never complete the road. How can we develop as a country? Where do we find the money from? And we all know that even in our own private lives, which is what the center right always thinks of as its unit, if you are in your own home and you don't pay your debts, or you don't save for a rainy day, or you go to church every day and go and give the money to your pastor to pray for you instead of trying to invest in your business, the business will collapse. And we as a country have come to the conclusion that we really do not take this whole issue of corruption seriously. And instead, we spend all our time bastardizing the word corruption. So, if we say everybody is corrupt, then I can also do what I want, somebody else can do what he wants, and we continue over and over again. One of the saddest ones which has happened is Saglame. We were supposed to have 5,000 houses to help us to achieve some of the things that Honorable Mr. Fari has asked us that we need to do for development. 5,000 houses. And I'm sure everybody was cheering us on. Or when the Honorable Minister signed the contract, 2 million, you can complain and say 2 million is too high or too low, but 2 million, 5,000 houses, let's see what we will get. 200 million, I beg your pardon, 200 million. So what happens? Next I hear, the contract was adjusted. Nothing happens in Parliament, but the contract was adjusted, signed off. So instead of 5,000 housing units, we now go to 1,506 units for 200 million. So, for once, we took the whole matter seriously, asked for the Ghana Institute of Surveyors to actually review the project and find out what happened. So they do a review and come up and tell us that, well, 188 million has been paid, it's gone, there's nothing. But the houses which we have built are not habitable. The houses are not habitable. So the minister asked, so what do I need to make those houses habitable? You need another 100 million. 100 million to make the 1,506 flats habitable. For once, we also took this whole matter seriously. We got the police involved. And as far as I knew, things were going swimmingly in court. At least, the next thing I saw in the Daily Graphic is this statement. The principal state attorney, Hilda Craig, notified the court of the prosecution's decision not to continue the case. I am puzzled. I'm like, why can't we at least let the case go through? If at the end of the day, we, the people of Ghana, represented by our judges and prosecutors, decide that, yes, we are quite willing to throw away 200 million loan, which we have found, that's fine with me. That is perfectly fine with me. But to truncate this whole process is a clear sign that we are not serious about fighting corruption. So I then made the mistake of going onto the website presidency.gov.gh to find out how our current president, His Excellency, is fighting corruption. And please, everybody who has a chance, even if you can right now, go to the website. What I see is a presentation by our Minister of Foreign Affairs and his team of Operation Loot, Recover or Loot. They have managed in 5 weeks to review, I'm not making this up, cases involving 21.19 billion. 21.19 billion United States dollars, which is makes no sense because our economy is 82.83 billion. And this 82.3 billion includes our, VRA, includes Ghana Gas, Cocoa Board, everything included. But they managed it miraculously in 5 weeks to investigate, find out that 21.19 billion has been stolen or whatever. They don't explain to me. When I started, I wanted to be sure I wasn't watching Facebook because, on Facebook, you see, oh, there is a miracle cure that the government is hiding from you. And I wanted to be sure, and I checked the website. Indeed, I was so alarmed that I actually asked a friend who is an IT specialist to check and be sure that this is not a scam website. He said, no, it is not a scam website. It is the website of the presidency of Ghana. Why am I going on and on about all this? Because until we are willing to treat seriously what is corruption, we won't go forward. Because in Ghana, we don't even have the money to build roads. So every peso, every penny, every dollar is borrowed. So we borrowed all this money, but we are not able to complete the projects. If you go to every single region, the roads are there, uncompleted, and people just get upset even more with all of us. So what can we do? Well, I have a few suggestions. I'm suggesting that all those putting themselves forward for public office should declare their assets publicly at their locality. I'm not saying they should all come to Accra. If I want to stand in Abutia, all I should do is go to Joloquita and say, these are my assets, it should be posted, and everybody knows. Just so that both the innocent and the corrupt can be distinguished. And those who are truly corrupt, we can all make sure that they are tackled. All presidential appointees and their legal spouses should declare their assets publicly once their nomination is approved. As far as I am aware, the Ghana Revenue Authority has the power to audit all taxpayers in Ghana. That is another problem we have, which is there are less than 3 million people out of 30-something million of us who pay taxes. So if they can audit us, why don't they audit? We should have random audit of all civil servants. Not all of them at once, but randomly. These days, it's very easy to randomly, so that nobody would say, oh, they're auditing me because I'm NPP or because I'm NDC. But randomly, like a lottery. If your Ghana card number comes up, then you must be audited. If we take these very seriously, I believe very strongly that we will truly focus on handling corruption and making sure that people realize if you steal from the Republic of Ghana, one way or the other, you will be caught. We are a center-right party, and if we are truly a center-right party, doing things right so that innocent people are not killed or put in jail is part of our DNA. Let's not shy away from it. But if we continue this process of saying everybody is corrupt, in which case nobody is corrupt. And I would conclude by saying that we all drink water, okay? But if you see everybody who is putting a glass to their mouth and say that, oh, they're all drunkards, then I'm sorry, you have nowhere to go. And if everybody is a drunkard, then then you forget about what alcohol does to people. Because I can have a clear water bottle here now, and but if you check it, you can know whether I'm drinking akpeteshi or I'm drinking water. So I think it's important that we focus on finding out those who are truly drinking akpeteshi and not tar everybody who is drinking water as being a drunkard. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Madam Suzanne Lohine, for giving us a very graphic representation of how horrible corruption is to society. Unfortunately, probably it escaped you, since you're a woman of figures. You should have added that if you have a very generous Attorney General, he can compute the infamous 60-40 Woncheni, and that will worsen the whole situation. When the 65% is eventually misappropriated. All right, thank you very much. So let me also welcome Mr. Stephen Forson to give us a brief remark on the thing. Can free market empower all citizens, not just few? Can it empower all citizens, not just a few? Probably this one, I know the answer.
It's simple.
Okay, so I think even the Bible says, so there will always be poor people. Is that also? Exactly. I hope they are not counted as one. All right, so you are watching us live on Patriotic Institute Facebook, also live on NPP Facebook. This is a collaboration between Patriotic Institute and then the Council of Elders of NPP, UGCC at 78 panel discussion with the theme Liberty, Markets and Ethics, Rethinking Development in Ghana. Forsen, your time.
Thank you, my brother. First of all, let me greet my grandparents and and I feel really honored to stand or to sit before you to also share my thoughts and also assure you that we've been listening when you speak, and that I sit here as a bridge between your generation and then our generation to let you know that in your absence, we will be here to hold the fort and that we understand the ideals of our forefathers.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
As we reflect on the 78 years of the UGCC's legacy, I find this question really interesting, and I think it is very urgent that we discuss it. Can the free market empower all, and not just a privileged few? The answer is quite simple. Yes, that's the purpose of free market. That's why our forefathers, had the idea of free market, and they thought that would work for us as a people. I'll talk about a few things. I promise not to make it boring and then lengthy. So free market is a powerful equalizer when it is truly open. That is only when it is truly open. Dr. J.B. Dankwa believed liberty meant economic inclusion, not just political freedom, economic inclusion. He advocated for a society where every citizen could aspire to own property and enterprise. Not to own enterprises and money of the state or property of the state. But then if you work hard, you should aspire to own property and businesses of your own. That's if you work hard. Later, Professor K. Buzia, in his rural development program, extended this belief, arguing that markets must work for the farmer, the villager, and not just the city elite. Rwanda has demonstrated that cutting red tape allows even women in rural areas to build enterprises. Rwandan government simplified the process, regulations, and bureaucratic hurdles that people must go through to start and operate a business. In practical terms, cutting the red tape in Rwanda involved, one, online business registration, which I'm happy to see in our previous government, another Kweku Fado's government. I saw that happen with the registrar The office, now the name has been changed to Office of the Registrar of Businesses. And that it's a fully automated system where if you want to register a business, you go there, you do your name search, you apply everything online, and you make payments and everything online, which I'm very happy it happened in our time as NPP. And Rwanda did same. They have also done same. Online business registration, you can now register a business in less than 6 hours. That's in Rwanda. Through the Rwandan Development Board, RDB. Fewer procedures, the number of steps to register a business has been reduced from 10 to just a few. Non-minimum capital requirement. Entrepreneurs can start a business without proving they have large sums of money. Can just start a business. Fast permits and licenses. Construction, land acquisition, and tax registration were all digitized and made faster. I'm talking about the Rwandan story. But if you are here and you experienced the previous government, you realize that most of these things also happened in the previous administration of NPP. The integrated government services, multiple agencies now work together through single online platform. And these are some of the things that people talk about Rwanda, and even Ghanaians make some of these mistakes. We talk about Rwanda as if, yeah, they are doing something extraordinary. Yeah, they are doing well. But then I look at these things and also see that they happened in NPP time. And they actually really happened. We saw government entities working on one platform. You can talk about the Ghana.gov platform. That's all these things. So anytime we are quick to compare our nation to other nations, let us look back a bit and then look inward. You realize that what you are, craving for is right here under your nose. And it's happened in NPP's time. In NPP's 2024 manifesto, we proposed a startup support program and business credit schemes for youth and women, directly targeting those locked out of the formal system. Now let me break down some of the things we did. The startup support program, it was dedicated to government initiatives that we promised in 2024's manifesto. It aimed to help young people and women start their own business, especially those with great ideas but no access to capital, training, and formal support. Business credit schemes. These are low interest rates loans or microcredit facilities designed specifically for youth and women-led businesses. And these all happen under the New Patriotic Party. Many people in the informal sector, like market women, seamstresses, and mobile money agents, can't meet the strict requirements of commercial banks like collaterals and guarantors. NPP's proposed scheme in the 2024 election was to fill this gap by providing accessible credit to those excluded from the formal banking system. People locked out of the formal banking system. This referred to those people who are unbanked or do not have bank accounts, have no formal business registration. Most of our market women in Makwala and the rest haven't registered business. So if we want to look at those who have businesses so that we call them formally and then assess them, we will not have them. Individuals often face rejection when they try to access loans, register businesses, or apply for government support if they are not having all these formal access. The startup support and credit schemes are meant to bridge this inequality, bringing the informal sector into the formal economy and enabling real economic inclusion. Why it matters? This policy builds on the ideals of property-owning democracy, empowering the people economically through enterprise ownership. It's about giving power back to the people, not just through speeches, but through tools, capital, and opportunity. Now, let's talk a bit about property rights. Property rights. I say property rights must be sacrosanct. Dr. Dankwa's vision of property-owning democracy was later advanced by President J.A. Kufuor, who institutionalized mass housing projects and land title reforms. Yet today, land insecurity remains a barrier to investment. In South Korea, securing land titles for farmers catalyzed their rural economic boom. NPP's pledge to digitize land records and title registration is really long overdue. It's a long overdue reform that will finally fulfill Danquest's vision of secure, accessible property ownership for everybody, not just a select few. Now, free markets must be matched with access to capital. Access to opportunity without access to capital is just a cruel joke. No matter how much ideas you have, how much opportunities you have, if you don't have access to capital to actually execute what you want to do, most of the things you want to do will not be realized. Under President Kufuor, Maslock and microfinance schemes brought capital to traders and small businesses. NPP's Bold Solutions Manifesto aimed to build on this by promising a digital and financial inclusion initiative, ensuring that even the smallest operator can access low-interest loans and mobile-based financial services. Let's compare this with Kenya's M-Pesa. I know you might have heard of Kenya's M-Pesa, where mobile microloans changed lives. And let me say this, Ghana has the potential to leapfrog if this policy delivers. Digital access is the new economic gateway, and this is my area. Professor Abuzia famously said, rural progress is national progress. And I know our fathers and grandfathers here will remember this. Some of us read it, but some lived it. So my grandfather chairman is here. In 2025, digital connectivity is the new lifeline of rural empowerment. I'm just coming from my village this dawn, and I'm amazed how rural, how digital connectivity has transformed the lives of people over there. And people are making businesses, not just in Accra. People are building their own businesses with digital tools. Even our old women, my mother sits down and does a whole lot of things on her phone just because of digital connectivity. So NPP's talk of digitalization was not just a mere rhetoric. It's actually doing wonders. India's Digital India campaign brought e-commerce and skills to remote areas. Ghana's One Student, One Laptop and Digital Ghana agenda under Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo laid the foundation. Our 2024 campaign plan included providing internet to every senior high school and equipping all teachers with laptops. This was not just, to me as an IT person, it wasn't just something that would have been beautiful, but if the teachers get to understand the digital opportunities, they get to also impart to the students. And it even makes their work much, much more easier. Education must serve enterprise. Free market rewards skills, but skills must match opportunity. Singapore's technical education reforms turn students into creators, not just job seekers. And I can say this also about India. I mean, a few years back, India was just a normal, country. But now, due to digitalization and how they took technology seriously, about 70% of workers in Google, Microsoft, and these giant companies making America are Indians and Chinese. But just recently, Chinese government has called all their tech people back to China because they realized that the U.S. economy was, making use of most of their talent. In as much as we are exporting cocoa and other produce, we can also make it a point to produce digital brains, which makes our 1 million coders project under our 2024 manifesto important. Because I am a tech person. I sit in Ghana. I work for several companies outside Ghana. They pay me in dollars. It comes here in Ghana. I spend it here. I haven't exported cocoa. I haven't bought any raw material. I haven't done anything. All I'm doing is sitting down and working for another economy somewhere, and I'm getting paid back into my economy. Ghana's TVET and entrepreneurship models, enhanced under Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, would have been expanded under our 2024 plan for digital skills project, as I talked about, could have bridged the gap. We just heard a lot about corruption. Corruption undermines free market. UGCC, as Dr. Dankwa and Buzia both warned, the abuse of state power, that it stifles citizens' initiatives. Ghana under Nana Addo Akufo-Addo passed the Right to Information Act and operationalized the Office of the Special Prosecutor, and the rest is history. The idea was beautiful. These were all aimed at, preventing or controlling corruption, preventing it. And by doing so, free market would have been, it would have been enhanced. Unfortunately, some of these institutions that we built ourselves to do good are now being weaponized against us. But more is needed. NPP's 2024 proposal on blockchain is in procurement, and anti-corruption digitalization tools must be embraced. And I realized that during our last election, a lot of our communicators and most people never really talked about the blockchain technology. I'm sure it was because people didn't understand. When you mention blockchain, it's just a database system where yours and mine are interconnected. So you can't just change figures. So whatever happens at Ministry of Finance, GRA, Bank of Ghana, they are interconnected. And each person is monitoring each other. That reduces corruption. If I'm working and all what I'm doing in my office, document-wise and everything, Chairman McMenu has access to it. Even what I type onto my computer, I can't delete. That's how the blockchain technology works. And if it had been properly implemented to have this blockchain technology as a backbone system managing our economy, it would have reduced corruption drastically, because it would have been an open book system where everybody sees what is going on. Monopolies must be confronted. Prof. Buzia's government encouraged cooperatives and private sector competition, decentralizing access to credits and influence. In Nigeria, breaking monopolies in telecom industry gave rise to competition and innovation. I see a lot of people complaining that data and DSTV and some of these services in Nigeria are, much cheaper than Ghana because of lack of competition here in Ghana. In Nigeria, there are several opportunities. When Glo came, Glo made MTN almost useless in Nigeria because they came with competition. They came with competition that brought prices down. In Ghana, DSTV that we pay here for about 850 Ghana cedis. In Nigeria, it's very cheap, about 300, 200 Ghana cedis. And that's what monopoly does. It seems we have entertained monopoly too much in this country, and that is not how free market is supposed to operate. In Ghana, NPP's promise, I'm trying to match what we promised we would have done, and what our trajectory of tradition is. Promise to open up energy and logistics sectors to new players would have broken a lot of monopoly to allow for other players to come in. If a few firms still control access to contracts and credits and opportunities, then market is not free, it is rigid. Taxes should encourage enterprise, not kill it. President Kufuor understood this very well. His tax holiday for new companies, especially in agro processing, helped SMEs to thrive. In Estonia, small businesses pay zero tax on reinvested profits. In Ghana, tax policies often punishes the very startups we should be nurturing. It's very interesting if you start a business. I once went to GRA to register my business, and a business that hasn't even started. We haven't even started operations, and I have been given a tax amount to pay. They say they are studying my business, and they think this is how much I'm supposed to pay, and they give that bill to me to pay. Where am I getting that money from when I haven't even started operating? And that's how come people do not pay the tax. I went, at the end of the day, I told myself, oh, me and I'm if I didn't take myself to GRA, this thing wouldn't have happened. So several people also do not go to GRA. But as a law-abiding citizen, I wanted to go and make sure everything was going on smoothly with my business. NPP's 2024 plan included a tax amnesty for startups and digital entrepreneurs like myself. Let us do our very best to implement it. And by this, I'm speaking to everyone watching us through our Facebook, not just those here. Those here are already the choir. They've already repented. Local markets must be protected from unfair competition. Dr. Dankwa defended Ghanaian enterprises against unfair colonial trade. That legacy remains relevant. Brazil's local industry policy strategically protects value-added production while encouraging exports. Ghana needs to restructure imports. As was said in our 2024 plan, we had pledged to incentivize local manufacturing and agro-processing companies. So we don't just trade cocoa, we process and export chocolates. And my last point, free market plus ethical governance always leads to shared prosperity. Free market does not work in isolation. It comes with ethical governance. And that's what gives us that shared prosperity that we all desire. Finally, we must marry freedom with fairness. In all what is happening, if we don't have that freedom and fairness, we can never achieve the free market and then the shared prosperity that we all need. And it will even become difficult for investors to come into our country. Which is why I feel strongly, although not part of my plan point to say this, that everybody must be concerned about the state of our judiciary right now. Any country where those affiliated to the ruling government feels their judgment is already assured. Imagine you are a foreign investor coming into that country to invest. If you are duped or your money is taken by those who seem to have power, where do you turn to? And it's anytime we are fighting this attack on our judiciary, the media and foreign investors and then the diplomatic community should not sit unconcerned, because it may come back to harm their own citizens, not only Ghanaians. Just recently, I saw a Singaporean man being maltreated by somebody in Ghana, and just because that foreigner had brought money into Ghana to invest and claims that his money, he had been duped of his own money. And he rather was arrested, was handcuffed, and they spoke in Ghana. He said, to wait, put the handcuff on him to show that we are serious. And that was to deter you and then to make you afraid to even turn to any court, to let you know that we will show you where power lies and you have nowhere to turn to. So the fight against the attack on our judiciary is an attack on our very selves, whether Ghanaian or foreigners. And this is a call to the diplomatic community. In conclusion,
And then, of course, my other panelists have actually done justice to the observation of protocol, but I still want to say good afternoon to our parents here. You actually give us hope. When I walked in, honestly, I got to the gate and I was hoping to come and meet other young people. But when I got here and saw our fathers, our mothers, I said, look, we still have hope because you have served, we have learned, and we are happy that you are walking us through the path. And like Fulton said, we eventually would get there. And when you are resting at home, watching us, I'm sure you'll be very proud that you have all of us here properly groomed. It gives us hope indeed. Still on the youth, although Mr. Fari said the youth wants to have everything today, I want to say yes. The opportunities and platforms should indeed be created. I've been asked whether youth-led enterprises do have real potential or do serve as drive for real potential. And you all will agree with me that yes, when the youth system is empowered, especially with the demographic advantage that we have in this country of the young generation being over 57%, of which about 20 or majority of this over 57% being under 25, tells us that look, the young generation is indeed made of huge percentage and shouldn't be taken for granted or should be given very special attention. Somebody will ask, so what's youth-led enterprises? I would say yes. When we have youth-led enterprises, we would have creation of jobs. The youth will be in best place to create opportunities for their peers. The youth will also, like Mr. Fari said, help in the reduction of overly reliance on government. Today, we see what is happening. We even had Youth Unemployment Association during the NDC era. Gracefully, we came to introduce NAPCO. We got the Youth Employment Agency revamped. We did all policies that could give hope and then provision of platforms and jobs for youth. Yet so, we are saying that, look, the provision of support for the young people would give us that leverage and strength to take off some level of burden or reliance on governance. Also, giving or having to support youth-led initiatives would as well encourage innovation and employment of models that are IT-related, that are very, very progressive for the country, and this will be very useful. Again, when you look at the reasons to support youth-led enterprises, you will see that youth or the young people are very open to innovation or adaptation of innovation. You can think of the agri-tech, the fintech, and all the youth technological advancements we are having in this country. It tells you, yes, when you throw out technology, person is here, the young people are always quick to grab. And when the young people grab it, they by all means will send it back. Also leading us to solutions provision at the local level. The young people are grassroots. We are with the people. The aged, yes, they provide guidance for us, support, the lead and everything. But the Dogombes will say, to it, that the roaming child outside is mostly older than the father. Because the child outside would have gone to see a lot to come to tell to their father, to be now aided by the father's wisdom to get all they want. So yes, the youth are out, we are with the people more, we know the problems, and if the youth-led enterprises are given the support or required opportunity to thrive, certainly provision of solutions will be helped by the same youth-led enterprises. Now, when you look at critical challenges that do face young people in attempt to get supported, in attempt to get noticed, you would see that some challenges, including the tax modalities Dr. Antoniette spoke about. We expect to get tax holidays. The bureaucratic nature of these registrations you spoke about. Government policies that are supposed to aid youth agencies or enterprises that are also productivity oriented are not really enough. And that is kind of draining the young people from all that they intend or we intend to give back to society. Also, when you look at access to network across, you would see that if you have the private partnership being well executed, people who would have been well established, who have seen it all, who are grounded in business, holding hands or bringing up young enterprises by youth would be of great benefit in this country. That is to say, you have the Tankombia enterprise, you have other locally produced products that do not have access to sub-regional, regional, or global markets, being mentored, being coached properly to be able to get well positioned in the market. So what we are basically saying is that youth-led enterprises indeed do pose very strong indication that when well properly supported would lead to a huge drive to national development, stability of our economy, boost of confidence of young people, even expanding our GDP and all that. And that sense of inclusion at all angles given to youth would give us that sense of hope we hope to have in Ghana and the ultimate development that we are craving. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Haji Arabia to Salifo. All too soon, we are inching closer to the end of the program, but I want to have a word from Engineer College Japan. Just want to have a word from you before we bring the curtains down. We are well within the time. I think we've tried, right? Round of applause for Engineer College Japan, please.
Thank you very much. I would say I regret the absence of some senior colleagues, especially aspirants, because I take this day, August 4th, as a very important day. The UGCC is a precursor to what we are seeing today, so all of us should attach importance to this day. And I think that the 78th anniversary, I'm not sure whether the organizers refused or failed or forgot to invite them, but I think Aferi, who is a very close friend of mine, sent me a message. Okay, but then I really regret their absence. But anyway, that is just by the by. It's a very, very important day that we are witnessing today, especially with the youth in attendance. It's important that our seniors hand over and prepare the generation for the future. It's very important, and we should mentor and encourage younger people to take over from us. As a political tradition, I think it is time for us to recognize there's a need for recalibration of the way we do things. I am an advocate for changing how politics is prosecuted in this country. We believe in what I call the Triple S doctrine. Our forebears believed in service to this tradition. They believed in sacrifice, and they were very selfless. They gave their everything for democracy to thrive in Ghana. And those of us who come from this political tradition, most often than not, are not proud enough to say it, that Ghana is enjoying democracy today because of the hard work of our forebears, those who fought for the return of democracy. Democracy did not come to Ghana on a silver platter. People lost their lives. People lost their businesses. People had to run into exile. And my first boss under President Kufuor, Madam Elizabeth Ohene, who is here. I'm very happy to see her. She was truncated at the beginning of the coup. I don't know whether, as Godwin said, whether she's been reinstated or not as the editor of Graphic, but it took a lot of hard work, dedication, sacrifice. And that is the kind of spirit that we need to revive in the NPP. Going back to our roots, our noble roots, those values and the virtues that really anchored the foundation of this party in 1992. Everyone was prepared to volunteer something for the good of the country, for the good of our party. And so today is a very important day, August 4th, because 78 years ago in Solpon, that is when the group got together to start the process that has produced democracy in Ghana today. If we are not happy with where we are right now, we, the younger generation, should accept today when you are in a position of authority, it is we, the Ghanaians, who urge you on to do what is untoward. We should respect and reward those who have sacrificed and not those who have become acquisitive in life. Society is now gripped with a sense of materialism and greed that we can do without. We should have a more collegial mentality. All for one, one for all. It's very important as NPP. Yes, we believe in property-owning democracy, but also of our country and loves our neighbor as thyself. So once again, I want to congratulate the Council of Elders led by my uncle, Hakman Osuajeman, and especially the patriotic able to live to the ideals of our forebears. So on this occasion, I can only say a word of congratulations to the organizers, to the Patriotic Institute, the Council of Elders, for giving this opportunity to me. May God bless the NPP. May God bless our homeland, Ghana. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Engineer Kwabena Eje Ejapon. A feather in the cap of the Patriotic Institute. Very, very encouraging words.